If you were born in the 90s or the early 2000s, Avatar: The Last Airbender might just hold a special place in your heart. The same goes if you were born before or after that, by the way. I mean, it's on Netflix now, so anybody can watch it. In fact, if you haven't seen it, turn off this video, go watch it, and then come back, because number one, I'm gonna be spoiling it, and number two, it is literally one of the greatest TV shows in history. You're missing out, go watch it. Anyways, from Aang's growth over 3 seasons, from a playful, innocent little child to the avatar that saves the world, to the many little short stories and adventures the characters have, where the writing isn't afraid to delve into very adult themes and dark real-world issues that even in those days, you probably wouldn't see in a kid's morning cartoon. Topics like sexism.
In our tribe, it is forbidden for women to learn waterbending.
Or the plot where the government of the quote-unquote good side brainwashes its own citizens to prevent civil unrest during a time of war.
There's no war in Ba Sing Se. Here we are safe. Here we are free.
And even the straight-up genocide of an entire culture.
Gyatso.
Hey, Aang, you find my dinner yet? Aang, I wasn't really gonna eat the lemur, okay? Oh, man.
To Zuko's iconic journey from villain
I don't need any calming tea! I need to capture the Avatar!
to anti-hero
You're not soldiers. You're bullies. Freeloaders abusing your power. Mostly over women and kids. You're sick cowards messing with a family who's already lost one son to the war.
to hero
How can you forgive me so easily? I thought you would be furious with me.
I was never angry with you. I was sad because I was afraid you lost your way.
I did lose my way.
But you found it again.
which, to be honest, is hands down the greatest redemption arc in TV history. Straight up, not even, no joke, like, don't even at me. It's just a fact. Suck it, Jamie.
I see one man with one hand.
And if you are a fan, then you might be surprised and maybe understandably a little skeptical to know that Avatar: The Last Airbender is based on a true story.
I fear that war may be upon us, young Avatar.
We need you, Aang.
Now, the show does draw inspirations from real-life Asiatic peoples and cultures, like the water tribe's roots in North American Inuit culture.
After the evening meal, families gather together on the warm caribou skins in the tent.
Or Ba Sing Se's obvious reference to the Great Wall of China in ancient Han Chinese history and culture. Or the fact that the entire premise of the show that revolves around the manipulation and bending of the four elements is deeply rooted in Buddhist philosophy. Now, these references and inspirations have largely been uncovered, understood, and appreciated. In fact, the Avatar Wiki has an entire page dedicated to listing all of these references. Not to mention all the videos and articles and Twitter threads you can find online that go into very descriptive detail. It's incredible. I'll link them in the description. You guys should check it out because it's insane how much detail and depth and cultural nuance the creators and artists of this show put into their work. Down to the music, I swear.
But as he's handing out the tea to the team, just like Iroh might do, listen to what we hear.
No one can make tea like Uncle, but hopefully I learned a thing or two.
He's channeling Uncle Iroh, and we can feel it in the music.
Check out the list, it's insane. But what I'm making this video for is different. What I'm saying is that the plot of Avatar: The Last Airbender isn't just inspired by Asian culture, it's a retelling of a real, true story that is just as dramatic and just as important in real life as it is in the show. Crazy, right? Like how that doesn't make sense because it's a story about bending elements and spirits and magic and all that. Well, here's why. Firstly, let's go over the premise of the Avatar. Now, we all know that the people of The Last Airbender are divided into 4 nations. The Avatar, a immortal incarnate being who is reincarnated every time the previous Avatar dies, is in charge of fostering and maintaining balance between these four nations. Essentially balance between the four elements. They're there so that none of any element or any nation can dominate the others. But the Avatar isn't just in charge of the four nations and the people within them. The Avatar is also responsible for fostering and maintaining balance between the physical and spiritual worlds.
You are the spirit of this forest. Now I understand. When I saw the forest had burned, I was sad and upset. But my friend gave me hope that the forest would grow back.
He is, and I quote from the Avatar Wiki, the human embodiment of light and peace. Now, let me tell you that in real life, we do, in fact, have an avatar. There is an actual reincarnate being walking among us on this planet as we speak, who, and I quote, is committed to encouraging harmony among the world's religious traditions. Their authority went beyond sectarian boundaries. While they had no formal or institutional role in any of the religious traditions, they were a unifying symbol to act as an
ecumenical
figure holding together religious and regional groups. It's this guy, the Dalai Lama. I mean, it couldn't be any more obvious now that you're looking at him, right? Like, that's clearly who they based Aang on. I mean, look at the robes and the colors. And he's bald too, so all he needs is a blue arrow on his forehead and a giant flying bison, and boom, there you go, that's old Aang. But the similarities don't just end with his appearance.
The Dalai Lama is a reincarnation of the patron saint of Tibet, the Buddha aspect of compassion, Avalokiteshvara.
Tenzin Gyatso, just like the Avatar, is also a reincarnate among a line of Dalai Lamas. He's the 14th to be specific. He was named after the death of the 13th Dalai Lama via the use of largely mystical methods, which involved visions, magic mold, and the body of the former Dalai Lama sort of coming alive to assist the monks in charge of finding him in pointing them in the right direction of where to look. What's notable about this method is how they finally sort of confirmed that Tenzin Gyatso was in fact the 14th Dalai Lama. And they did this by showing the 2-year-old Tenzin a collection of toys and knickknacks. The other part being toys and knickknacks that belonged to previous Dalai Lamas in past lives. And allegedly, Tenzin, as a 2-year-old, was able to pick out exclusively the objects that belonged to the former Dalai Lamas, cementing his identity as the 14th Dalai Lama. Now, this is pretty much the exact same method that the air nomad monks used to confirm Aang as the next avatar, if you remember that episode.
How do you know it's me?
We have known you were the Avatar for some time. Do you remember these?
Those were some of my favorite toys when I was little.
You chose them from among thousands of toys, Aang. These items belong to Avatar's past.
Growing up as the Dalai Lama, Tenzin Gyatso...
Now hold on, let's just pause the video for a quick minute here. If this name doesn't sound familiar to you yet, maybe I should refresh your memory a little bit.
Hey, guys! I want you to meet somebody.
Who's that?
Monk Gyatso, the greatest airbender in the world. He taught me everything I know.
Oh, and yeah, in the series that comes after The Last Airbender, The Legend of Korra, one of Aang's sons, the Airbender, is named Tenzin. So, yeah, back to the video.
Growing up as the Dalai Lama, Tenzin Gyatso would act as the unifying symbol of Tibet, highly regarded in worship as a reincarnation of
Avalokiteshvara, a holy Buddhist figure who is worshipped as he is part of a group of
Buddhas in the making called Bodhisattvas, who in compassion turn back from nirvana or full Buddhahood to share their merit with suffering humanity.
His job was to help others achieve the same spiritual enlightenment that he and his previous incarnates possessed. And growing up as the Dalai Lama, he did. And for a while, Tibet lived in harmony.
Then, everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked.
The rebel units in Lhasa and its outskirts were completely crushed.
The Chinese army already crushed around 7,000 to 8,000 Tibetan soldiers.
In 1950, when Tenzin was just about 15 years old, Chinese troops from the then just newly formed People's Republic of China, under the leadership of the Chinese Communist Party, invaded Tibet and quickly dismantled Tibetan independence.
The five-starred red flag of our motherland flutters high over Lhasa.
The Dalai Lama, just 15 years old, was hurriedly declared of age.
Normally, we would have told you of your identity when you turned 16. But there are troubling signs. Storm clouds are gathering.
I fear that war may be upon us, young Avatar.
We need you, Aang.
What followed was 9 years of Chinese occupation. And then in 1959, in the midst of an armed revolt in Lhasa, the capital of Tibet, the Dalai Lama escaped over the border into India.
Unknown to the Chinese, the Dalai Lama had slipped away from Lhasa by night,
where he sought out political asylum from the government there.
Chinese forces swooped down on the capital, and to avoid capture, the spiritual head of the Tibetan people, the Dalai Lama, fled to India.
The Indian government did grant him this, and he, along with 80,000 other Tibetan refugees, were resettled into a town called Dharamsala in the mountains of northern India.
The first of 90,000 Tibetan refugees followed the Dalai Lama across the Himalayas into India and Nepal.
There, they established a government in exile where they still live to this day. With his world in an imbalance for the last 70 years, the Dalai Lama still acts out his duties of spreading spiritual enlightenment to Tibetans and people all over the world from his exiled community in the mountains of northern India. He's a celebrated and beloved figure on the international stage, which he kind of has to be if he wants to maintain his legitimacy as the real Dalai Lama, especially now that he's doing all of this outside of Tibet. He even has a YouTube channel. But there is a looming crisis that could befall the Tibetan people in northern India very soon. Even though the Dalai Lama is an enlightened being, he is still mortal. Tenzin Gyatso is now 85 years old, and his reincarnation could be due soon. And this is a problem because the responsibility of selecting the next Dalai Lama in the cycle doesn't belong to the Dalai Lama. It belongs to the Panchen Lama. Now, the Panchen Lama also acts as a realized spiritually enlightened being whose authority is second to the Dalai Lama. And in this sort of student-teacher relationship, the two lamas are responsible for recognizing each other's incarnates. So you have a cycle of the Dalai Lama recognizing the Panchen Lama's successor and the Panchen Lama recognizing the Dalai Lama's successor, and it sort of goes in a circle like that. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, then who and where is the Panchen Lama? On the 14th of May, 1995, the Dalai Lama recognized this 6-year-old boy, Gedun Choki Nima, as the 11th Panchen Lama. 6 days later, he disappeared.
Only he could stop the ruthless firebenders. But when the world needed him most, he vanished.
Within a few days of being chosen by the Dalai Lama, Gedun Choki Nima mysteriously disappeared, and soon afterwards, so did his parents. None of them have been seen since.
To this very day, nobody knows exactly where the 11th Panchen Lama is. But one thing's for sure, he's not frozen in a giant ball of ice with his flying bison floating around somewhere in the South Pole. He's in the custody of the Chinese government.
It's true. China kidnapped a 6-year-old and no one has heard from him since. Although just 2 years ago, a senior Chinese official said he is being educated, living a normal life, growing up healthily, and does not wish to be disturbed.
Even now in 2020, there have been no reports of anybody outside of the Chinese government ever seeing Gedun Choki Nima in person. But the CCP's efforts to control the Dalai Lama's reincarnation doesn't even stop there. In 2007, the Chinese government passed legislation that required all Buddhist temples within Tibet to file application forms for tulkus, tulkus being the Tibetan term for enlightened incarnates or living Buddhas, before they could be legally reincarnated, which is insane. The CCP requires Buddhist temples to file an application form in order to get a green stamp in order to legally be reborn. That's insane. That's crazy. Because of all of these factors, the Dalai Lama has been unsure about his reincarnation. He's even gone on record to say that he may not even reincarnate at all.
The Dalai Lama institution will cease one day. This man-made sort of institution will cease. No guarantee some stupid Dalai Lama comes. That disgraced himself or herself. That's very sad.
His latest statement says that he'll be finalizing his decision in 2025, when he turns 90 years old. While the CCP has gone on to imply that whatever Tenzin Gyatso chooses when he passes away, they'll be selecting their own Dalai Lama within Tibet, using the Panchen Lama they picked out right after the disappearance of the original Panchen Lama in 1995. It's a pretty messy situation. Now, I recognize that the tone of this video sort of made a big leap from where we started off a few minutes ago, from discussing a Saturday morning cartoon to a real-life socio-political crisis that is in progress as we speak. But before I end this, I do want to clarify that in all my research, the showrunners and creators of the show never state that they drew any inspiration from this story whatsoever. Basically, this video is purely speculation. But what I do hope you walk away from this video is the knowledge that this is happening. This is a crisis that's happening right now as you speak. It's history in the making, kind of. And that the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender isn't just deep in its characters, its plot, its story, and its lore, but also in its cultural inspirations and its influences and things it draws from. And also in a general level, that the incredible events and happenings that we put and project onto our media, as fantastical as they may seem, as magical or as out there as they may look, they are often more rooted in reality than they are in our imaginations. So thank you for watching, and see you around. Peace.
I always have one dream. That is, this century, the world truly become real happy human family. I think through education, through more holistic, realistic sort of thinking, I have confidence we can develop a sense of oneness of humanity. Then, very basis of violence or war, then no longer there. This century can be century of peace.